Jeff Bezos switching coasts, the founder of Amazon.com, taking his talents to Miami. Wants to be closer to his parents, he says, and his rocket launches. He made that announcement on Instagram. Our own Robert Frank made an interesting point that there may be some other reasons to leave the Seattle region.
Jeff Bezos posting on Instagram last night that he's leaving Seattle after nearly 30 years. He's going to move to Miami to be closer to his parents and his rocket launches over there in Cape Canaveral. But he's also going to save a fortune in taxes. Last year, Washington State passed a new tax on capital gains. Long-term capital gains there are now taxed at 7%. In 2021, Bezos sold $10 billion of Amazon stock, so he would have owed $700 million in state taxes. He hasn't sold a single share of Amazon since that tax took effect last year. Washington lawmakers have also tried twice to pass a wealth tax that would impose a 1% tax on all financial assets. So Bezos would owe $1.6 billion a year if that were to pass. Instead, he can use all that money to build his new beachfront estate in Miami. He bought 2 properties on Indian Creek for over $140 million. Brokers say he's likely going to tear down those existing mansions, build a new one. His new neighbors include Tom Brady, Carl Icahn, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump.
Robert made the point that for every $1 billion he sells, there's an additional $70 million tax on.
I just did that.
Just in terms of cash.
I did that in
you
my
did that math yourself.
I did that in my
And he sells a lot of stock because he's constantly trying to finance Blue Origin, and he hasn't. There is no tax efficient way to do it so that you're moving money from one place to the other without actually selling it. So he is a genuine taxpayer.
That was the first thing I thought, though.
Yeah.
Because when you heard this, Washington State, I don't think has taxes, but they've got on the bill to start taxes there, and the other one that he mentioned.
Florida's pretty tax friendly, as we know. Miami Beach is pretty cool.
I've asked you this many times, but I still don't really know the answer. Why would these big forces, these big powerful forces, Washington Post, German government, Media Matters, be so intent on crushing like a little Twitter account that reposts videos? What is that?
This is the way journalism changed in the Trump era. You know, when I grew up, the reason I admired journalism, the reason I went into it was I studied things like the Pentagon Papers, where documents were released showing the Pentagon was lying to the American public about the Vietnam War, or people confronted the Nixon administration with Watergate, or people exposed power centers. What has happened is, in the Trump era, the media convinced itself, the corporate media, that the real threats to the United States were no longer the CIA and the Pentagon and the NSA and Wall Street and Silicon Valley, all of whom are on their side and trying to undermine Trump. It's the Trump movement and people who are conservative. Those are criminals in their eyes. And they've moved their media lens from the people who used to be the target of it, people in power centers, to individual citizens whose only crime is that they have the wrong ideology. And they're using their vast resources. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, not to challenge actual power centers, but to destroy and wreck the lives and reputations of people who they regard as having the wrong politics. That's all this is about.
Stasi for the deep state. That's exactly right. So nicely put.